Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the This Podcast Cannot Continue. I put a "the" in front of it. That probably wasn't super necessary. I'm Colin.
My name's Ben.
And we're here to talk about some video games.
I should have taken the opportunity to make fun of you and say, like, I'm the Ben.
The Ben. the Ben.
This is the Colin, and I'm the Ben.
Yes, we are singularities.
From This Podcast Cannot Continue.
Let's just start adding "the" in front of everything. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I'm the only Ben. Out of all
the
of them.
only one in the whole world.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry, which episode did you say it was? 7. Cool.
Lucky number 7.
We've come a long way.
Come a long way.
This is This Podcast Cannot Continue episode 7 remake.
Episode 7 remake. Yeah. So it's just like last time we did episode 7, but with a little
the
bit
fans
of
have been
different stuff
clamoring
going on
for this for decades.
Yes. Yeah. There was a there was a petition. There was a fan brigade to remake it. All HD, 60 frames per second. And we promise you there will be no issues with any door textures. None whatsoever.
Yeah. No hexagonal cups.
No hexagonal cups. Although, you know what? They should capitalize on it, and Square Enix should sell
merch
that's like the hexagonal cup.
I kind of wanted to talk about merch as a topic, but
yeah, we can just jump right into it.
I put it aside. It's not my topic for today.
Okay, I got 3, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go yet. So hit me with yours, and we'll see where we're going to go. I think they're all good.
Okay, yeah.
I got stuff in the bank for later, if not.
Well, I'm kind of sequeling us on this one, actually.
Okay.
So I want to follow up on a past episode and talk about another facet of something that I think we didn't really touch upon comprehensively. And so this kind of loops back onto preservation.
Okay.
And before I get specifically on like the exact topic, I also just want to address like a few more like kind of newsy topics in preservation, which are that we should maybe be thinking about, which are like, first off, and unfortunately based on the day that it is today that we're recording and when we'll be publishing this episode, this ship has already sailed. But
you should say it's April 1st. This is not probably when you're listening to this, but today is April Fool's Day.
What day did I say it was? Oh, yeah. It's April 1st. So yesterday was really the last day that you could play Super Mario Bros. 35 or buy the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection.
Yep.
And so hopefully if any of you out there listening wanted to do those things, hopefully you did. But I just want to kind of throw out there that that one was, for obvious reasons, a preservation risk. I'm sure there's a lot of people who bought physical copies that'll be dumping those carts in the future.
Oh, I did not do that. I bought the cart.
Yeah, and as for Super Mario Bros. 35, whether that one ever becomes playable in any capacity in the future via community efforts, I have no idea. We have seen things like that happen. Like, for example, there is a fan server for the original version of Demon's Souls.
Oh, yeah.
Despite that the server is down. So, like, you never know.
Yes.
These kind of things can and have been made to happen.
Maybe Nintendo will bring it out of the Nintendo vault. They'll pull a 1990s Disney.
I mean, who knows, right? But, I mean, if nothing else, a community effort could be a possibility. And then just sort of on a similar subject to that as well, then we also recently found out that the deadlines for Sony shutting down the PSN stores are going to be this summer as well.
Yes.
And so that'll be Vita, PS3, and PSN specifically. I shouldn't have said shutting down the PSN stores because like it sounds like I'm talking about all their platforms. So just some of the older stuff now, right? PS3,
Vita, and PSP.
Vita and PSP. And this is their first time doing this, right?
Well, not quite, because the PSP hasn't been able to connect to the PSN store in a meaningful way in a very long time. Actually,
really?
So here's a fun aside of something that I actually did this week. Was upon learning upon this, I wanted to download a bunch of PS1 RPGs and classics, right? Because they used to have such a robust library on there. And I went on to the PS3 store, and it's already been gutted. So I already had Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, Xenogears, Vagrant Story, some of these games that I really wanted, right? They're not even on the store anymore. You can't even option to buy them. They have 4, 5, and 6, like the Chronicles and Anthology remakes. They have Origins, and they had like Mega Man Legends, and I picked up no, I didn't pick up Wild Arms. I already had that one. They had Wild Arms 2, but not 1. But I had already bought 1, so they've already removed PS1 classics from there. Crisis Core, not in the PSP store anymore. Through the PS3, you can still buy PSP games and then copy them from your PS3 onto your PSP.
What a process.
It is quite a process. Crisis Core isn't there. So Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is this game that a lot of people really like. It tells the story of Zack Fair. Nothing. Mm-hmm. If you don't own physical or an old school PSP, there's basically no way to play that game right now. It's never been re-released. It's never been remastered. It's never been compiled into a collection with other Final Fantasy VII games. It's really weird. So they've already kind of gutted. They've already kind of gutted the store. And then also I ran into this problem where I bought and downloaded Suikoden 2, and I couldn't copy it from my PS3 to my PSP Go. Not because of memory issues. Apparently, I looked online, they had 2 versions of that PSP Classic or the PS1 Classic on there. The old version was fine. You could copy it. So if you already had that one and you re-downloaded it and put it on, you could copy it over. But if you had bought it recently, as I did, you can't for some reason. It was the only game I couldn't get onto my PSP Go. And I just like my handhelds. I think the PSP Go is a really neat little thing, kind of like the Game Boy Micro. It's sort of like the outcast of the handheld PSP family, but I've always used it as like this little portable, sleek arc for PlayStation 1 RPGs that I purchased at the PSN store. And they closed down the PSN store years ago for the PSP, so I couldn't log on to it on my PSP anymore, so I had to go through my PS3, and then lately going through the PS3 has become an even more arduous process. And the saving grace is if you've already paid for and downloaded these games, you can re-download them at any time. Issue is the PSP Go and old PSPs don't connect to current security settings on like what we They don't do like the WPA2 or whatever, right? No, they don't. So like your only really option is to connect to an unsecured network or temporarily make like an unsecured guest network on your own Wi-Fi network to log in to re-download old games or hope that the PS3 will copy them over.
Wasn't there an older authentication format though for
WEP?
Routers that? Yeah, does it do WEP?
It does. Yeah. So
because I don't know about all routers or your router, but I believe that mine is a gateway, which is a modem and a router in one, which at least here in Canada, that's what most service providers will provide you with.
Right.
And the one I have, I'm pretty sure I've seen in the setting that you can simultaneously set a WAP or WEP and like a WPA2 like at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that you have a way to authenticate an older device like that.
Totally. There are options. I guess what I'm trying to say, though, that is for some people, or maybe people who wanted this to be less difficult, or they're just getting into collecting PSP or whatever. And I'm going to underline that I'm not a collector of PSP stuff. I like the PSP Go format as a thing. I think it's neat, and I play PS1 games on it. Maybe I'm not the target demographic, but I had a heck of a time getting anything onto there until I discovered the copy method, and then even that wasn't 100% foolproof. So, like, I'm definitely having a mixed experience with saving.
Yeah,
saving like this. I hesitate to say saving like in a data hoarder kind of way, but for me, you know, I want to just have this full of all these classics that I like so I can play them anywhere in their original form, because like you can play, for example, Final Fantasy IX on the Switch, but it's a port of the mobile port, which has really weird UI to me. And even though it has some like quality of life features, I just really love the original UI of that game. I don't know. There's a lot of like...
You're actually kind of getting pretty close to my subject at this point.
Oh, yeah. We went way off topic. To sum it up,
okay.
This PSP...
It's cool, though. You're bringing it back around. This is all actually very close to on topic.
This PSP thing really brought to mind that because I was hoping to get in on it before it shut down for real. You know, one last trek through this old store. And when I got there, a lot of it's already gone, and it kind of bummed me out, to be honest. a lot of stuff I was looking for.
I wonder what the state of the Vita and the PS3 are. I mean, I could always fire up my PS3 later tonight or something and just kind of take a look around. I don't really think there's, because I have the same instinct. There's a part of me that says I should see what's on that store and if there's anything I want to buy. But at the same time, when the store goes down, at that point, I could pretty much just turn off all online functionality on the console at the system level, and then go ahead and like soft mod it if I want, like,
right.
You know what I mean? Or
there's
on
options.
the other hand, I could keep everything down to disc copies, which for the most, at the current time, I believe everything that I own so just kind of double checking that thought. But yeah, at the current time, everything I own for PS3 is a physical copy anyway.
Right. Me too, for the most part.
Also, but I know that there's some things I could be interested in that aren't off that console that might be a little trickier to find now.
Yep.
So
I believe
a digital version could be like sort of my last shot at those things.
I believe
see.
Patches will still work. So if you buy a used game and plug it in and it requires a massive update, you can still get the patch, which is good. I was concerned about that.
Yeah, that is a concern for sure. Especially, and that may be a concern in the future too, especially as we're getting to the situation where a lot of games release in really bad shape and then are being patched into much more playable versions, right? So that's a big concern. So to kind of loop this back around, and it's so here's the thing. I'm not actually that concerned, I think, at the current time for PSP, because I think a large amount of PSP games have been dumped, and to make matters even more comfortable at this time, PSP emulation, as far as just playability and being able to experience the games, is actually in a really, really good place.
Yep.
So we have a lot to be thankful for there. The emulator PPSSPP in particular is really good on both Android and like desktop, right? And so if you use that in a desktop environment, though, you're having a really different experience than playing it on a PSP.
Yes.
Right? And if you use it on Android and maybe have like a controller attachment or something, you're closer, I think, to a handheld experience, but it's still like, it's not the same as the hardware, right? No. And so this is sort of what I think we kind of didn't touch on. We came really close. We focused a lot on consoles specifically.
Yep.
And hardware in terms of like accuracy. But what we didn't really get into, I think, is almost just like how the experience sort of changes with like hardware that's specific to the system, or like has like a unique like mode of play.
Are you talking about like handhelds, so like the DS?
A lot of, or even a lot of like Nintendo systems. Like, so for example, I ran into this when I wanted to like play some N64 games, and where I really ran into this is I was playing with the like the native PC port of Super Mario 64.
Right. Yep.
That was basically released by fans after reverse engineering the source code, or decompiling the source code. And what happened was by default it supports X input, so like using like an Xbox controller or something, but it just felt so wrong to me, right? So I had to get an adapter and use a real N64 controller. And so we kind of didn't touch on this, but like I think that some systems, like, you're never going to have the same or the right experience again if that hardware is gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in some respects, like, there are still companies that are making like aftermarket N64 controllers, but we all sort of know how a lot of the time, like the sort of like third party controllers are like not great, right?
No.
There have been better offerings in recent years. Something that comes to mind is like Crix, who does some of the like the flash cards, like the EverDrives. I believe has a Genesis controller. I think it's a 6-button Genesis controller called
and it's
Joys.
Like made from the original mold or whatever. Is it that one?
That's the Retrobit one.
Oh, okay.
From my understanding, the Retrobit one has the Sega original mold, but they don't have whatever the like pivot of the D-pad is. So it's like
weird.
Almost exactly the same, but the D-pad pivots slightly different in its middle point, from my understanding.
Very strange.
Crix's Joys is, I think, not based on it, but it's like a really good imitation anyway. It's like, apparently it's a really great controller. So for what I guess where I'm going with that, to like mention these ones is like, while the traditional third parties of the past, like, you know, like here's the Mad Catz controller, like for player 2, suffer my childhood friend, is like, that's the meme. I think the community made offerings have actually like really stepped up and like offered us something that in the circumstances where these offerings exist can like be as good as the first party controller. But like when I think about things like Wii remotes, like I am aware that like you can use a Wii remote without a sensor bar if you have any IR sources. And one of the common things that people did in the early days of emulating Wii was they would put two like candles, like tea lights, under their monitor, spaced about how a sensor bar would be, and that works. Because there is some IR emission from like a candle, like from a candle flame.
That's so clever.
It's clever, but that's not like these kind of things really alter the experience, don't they?
Totally. Yeah. It's not the intended experience at all.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of like headed for it again with like headset VR.
Okay. Yeah.
In its current form. Yeah. Because like we might, you know what I mean? Like we might see like more and more like constantly changing solutions, right? Like if you think about things like the finger tracking that started to show up on like Index and certain other like VR peripherals, like they're, I don't know, like might there be a day where like that method that they used is like not forward compatible with like some new method to VR or like methods of display or methods of movement? Like, could we be putting ourselves in a position again where it's like you need this like older VR setup to play this older VR game because it's like it turned out we had like a paradigm shift in like the methodology? Now, I mean, I think that we're probably going to be on headsets and like handheld controllers in VR for a long while. I think the quality of like both is going to go up and up and up quite fast. Like it's improving fast, right? Yeah. Like the Index, I think, was a huge step over any of the headsets, and particularly the controllers that were out previously.
Yeah, yeah. But I've been watching this market because I kind of want to get into it at some point, but I'm not sure when to jump into it.
Yeah, but I think that it's like it still follows the same paradigm that was established with like the early modern VR headsets, like, you know, the first like the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So we haven't seen it happen yet, but I kind of wonder, you know, if that could happen. And then in handhelds in particular, I think like handhelds are actually really tough. Like there's I had an experience when I was in high school when the DS Lite came out.
Yeah.
Or was it
the DSi?
Sorry, bear with me for a second. No, I think it was actually the original DS, and then the DS Lite coming out was sort of what kind of bailed me out. The original DS, my shoulder buttons died. Right?
Oh, that's really weird. That thing's like a tank.
Yeah. And this was my first experience with like, if a controller, like if a button or something fails on a controller, I can just get a new controller. But if a button or something fails on the system, like on like a handheld system, like I'm looking at replacement if I can't get it repaired, right? And back then, I mean, I was a kid in high school. Like where was I going to get it repaired? Especially in the small city that I grew up in, right? There wasn't, you know, a lot of like electronics repair kind of just around at the time.
Nope. Not for Nintendo DSs anyways.
I mean, nowadays I feel like I would just, you know, go to like iFixit, look for a teardown and see if I can open it up and maybe like something was dislodged. Like, I don't know if there's a membrane under those or what, but if it was dislodged or if it's like a micro switch that I just need to.
I did that. I mean,
it depends. We don't.
Game Boy Advance SP. I had a sticky button on a used one that I had been playing a lot of Castlevania on, and it was one of the shoulder buttons, and it was irritating because it would sometimes work, but sometimes not. And I just opened it up and just cleaned the button and put it back to, it's fine. I don't know, it just got sticky.
That did the trick.
I'm not sure what was going on with it, but yeah. So, I mean, young me would have never figured it out. I would have just been like, my SP is broken.
Yeah, both my shoulder buttons failed, which I find interesting and kind of conspicuous. I remember...
yeah, that is weird.
Part of the reason why this is so memorable is because I was speaking... it was like for Christmas, I think I asked my mom for Animal Crossing Wild World, and she knew my shoulder buttons were broken because I complained about it, right? And she was like, well, why would you want a new DS game? Like, why would you spend your money on a new DS game if you don't know if you're going to like run into a problem with needing those shoulder buttons? So what I ended up doing, I think, was going online and just like reading as much as I could about like what, like I think I like looked for, I don't think I found manual scans, but I think I found like an IRC channel where there was people who already bought the game and was asking them like, what does the manual say about the controls? Like, is this a game that I can play if my shoulder buttons are broken? And what I found out actually is that, if I'm not mistaken, besides I think some very small exceptions, you can play the majority of that game with the touchscreen, right? So as soon as I found that, I was like, well, I'm good.
Because it's not an action game. They can map a lot. Here's a question. Did the DS ever have accessibility options? Like, you know how phones, if a button breaks on a phone, at least
you can have that little like, the classic, the iPhone, the gray square with like the white dot.
Man, I used to have that permanently on my phone.
It's the home button.
I was like relying on my phone way past when I should have gotten a new one, kind of like currently, and I had that as a permanent way to
the DS doesn't.
See, that to me
Not
is
that
kind
I
of
know of.
Because handhelds, I think, need that. Because you're right. Like, what are you supposed to do? Replace the entire handheld if something like doesn't work anymore?
And actually, I think the DS is probably one of the best case scenarios for like describing how dramatically different it's going to be to play a DS game when the DS is no longer, like when DS hardware is just like no longer available to be found.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, there's two screens, right?
Yep.
And then on top of that, it is a handheld. So, you know, if you're playing it on like a PC or like on a larger display, like that's actually awesome. First off, I think that's actually really cool, but it's still different than, you know, playing like a handheld experience. I think the Wii U DS, like virtual console games are actually really cool because you get like a screen on the TV and a screen on the tablet and you still have a touchable like screen. Like I think that's actually a really fantastic like platform to maybe play a DS game on.
Right. And
I have to wonder if like the virtual console injection sort of thing will be coming around for that as it is on something like the 3DS. I haven't looked into it or anything. But like, you know what I mean? Like if you have like a PC emulator, like, so imagine playing like a game that's primarily touchscreen, like maybe WarioWare. The DS WarioWare touched, almost everything is touchscreen. There is like a segment where there's also microphone mini games.
Well, that's right out for most people.
Yeah, and so like if you're on PC, now you have to configure your emulator for like a microphone, right? And then you also have to configure like if I'm not mistaken, I haven't actually used a DS emulator on PC, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe you can like click the mouse and drag around on the bottom screen for touching, which is fine if it's like some simple menu stuff. But if you're trying to play like WarioWare Touch and you're trying to like draw or click or like whatever, it's just like it's not the same as using a stylus.
Well, no,
right?
It totally misses the point of how that game was designed to be played. It's like, is it functional? Yeah, but like they intended you to hold a little pen. Also,
I think you could get closer if you used a drawing tablet.
Oh, maybe.
Actually, the one thing I want to quickly mention that I think is like maybe our closest form again, and I said this for PSP, and it's funny is actually Android yet again, because there is a DS emulator for Android, and because we tend to keep and hold our phones in a vertical orientation.
Yeah, you just put the two
screens are displayed top and bottom.
That's smart.
And because phones have a touch screen, you also have a touch screen. The only thing is you don't have buttons. So it can be a little tricky. I mean, you can have overlay buttons on top of the touchscreen, or like, it has all kinds of configurations. I remember playing Pokemon Heart Gold or Soul Silver, whichever.
Yeah.
And the only overlay button I had to enable was actually just the D-pad, because like in battles and stuff like that,
you just pick everything on the bottom screen.
The bottom screen would show you them as touchable buttons. Yeah, so I basically was able to play the entire game like that. I think I might have had one or two exceptions where I had to enable a touch button for something, but it was very, very rare.
What about games where you have to close the lid?
The phone could be a good solution. Are there games where you have to close the lid?
Oh, heck yeah. In Phantom Hourglass, there's this part where you have to stamp a map onto a piece of paper, and they want you to like interact with the DS and actually put it into sleep mode and then open it up again.
Oh, that's really clever. I didn't know about that.
Dude, it is super clever, but it's also just like...
like
you could get that to work.
I would suspect that there will be a way, if there isn't already a way, in the emulator to like simulate closing and opening the lid.
But like this is once again one of those things
to the point where it sends the game the signal, but you won't really get like you have. It's how do I put it? It's kind of like in Frank Cifaldi's like GDC talk, if you've watched it, where he talks about the unique controller that one of the games that they were releasing in the SNK collection is like a joystick that can be rotated on the top.
Yeah.
And so how do you adapt that to a controller? It's like the same thing. You cannot know that you have to include a function in your emulator to close the console and like tell the game that it's going into sleep mode and then coming back out, unless you've actually like had the hardware in front of you and like done that, or you've read documentation by somebody else who experienced the hardware and has done that. I think thankfully Phantom Hourglass being a Zelda title, I don't think we'll soon collectively all forget that.
You only have to do it once. It's just a cool moment because I remember staring at it being like, well, I don't know how to do this. And then like I literally was like, oh my God, does it want me to? And then I just like tried it and I pulled it up and just like, congratulations, you did it, Link. And I was like, what? Like it was like
that's really cool.
It's one of those moments where the game crosses into like you physically doing something in real life, and it was very, very neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that was neat. I still didn't finish that game.
I think
it was a fun moment.
I think maybe one more thing. Well, like if you think about handhelds, like when we were talking about the community producing controllers, like that's also kind of out the window for handhelds, right?
Well, but like Analog Pocket, that's neat. It's sort of like what you're talking about. Sort of.
It's I mean, it literally is like the next closest thing, right? But now we're getting to a point like that's not as simple to produce as like a replacement controller, right?
Honestly, I think this is gonna sound weird. So like I've talked about it before, but like my IPS Game Boy, I'm a big fan of this thing. Even though it's maybe not the cleanest build, it's just like I think it looks pretty neat. It's cool.
Right. But the foundation of this question is what happens when there's no more Game Boys around to
cannibalize. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is just like I think, man, I don't know what the put that down. I think
the most significant thing is documenting the hardware.
Yeah.
Which it's a good thing that there's a lot of people out there who are doing that through these emulation and like sort of FPGA type projects, as well as literally just documenting, photographing boards, all of that.
Yeah, but what I was going to say though was I want Nintendo to release, they will never do this. It's not in their best interest at all. But like, just imagine if they released like an anniversary Game Boy Color. Like not mini, but basically that idea. You know what I mean? Like it could even have a
they don't have to actually like shrink it. But
yeah, it could even have a cart or whatever, but just like an updated Game Boy Color that has like here's a cart with like it has like Wario Land 3 on it, and you know both the Oracle of Ages and Link's Awakening DX, and like just all those classic Game Boy Color games loaded on to like one like mega cart, and then also kind of like that Sega Genesis re-release from a while ago that came loaded with a bunch of games, but also could take native Genesis carts. Like that was like a cool.
I didn't know about that.
They used to have them at like Urban Outfitters for like $100. I don't know if they were super good in terms of like being super close to a Genesis.
Was that a Sega release? Like an official release?
It had Sonic on it. Like I'm assuming so. I might be misremembering here, but my point is that like there's definitely like it might not be the same as the original Game Boy, but imagine if they just made like a glass screen, you know, backlit Game Boy like premium anniversary special edition that they put out. And maybe it doesn't even have a cartridge slot. I'm going to even say like Nintendo, you won't let me put cartridges in it because you don't want to do that, but it came preloaded with whatever and I can plug it in and charge it with like a, you know, like a USB-C or whatever. That would be sick. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Like cuz it's not trying to take away from the Analog Pocket market. I think that that's a very specific thing that is targeting just basically like people who want to play retro games and want an all-in-one system that's also premium, right? But I think Nintendo
and also have an existing collection
exactly
because of the cartridge slot.
But with this, it would be like, you know, $150 and people could relive their childhoods, but with like a premium product that really celebrates the legacy of the Game Boy and like honestly Nintendo's dominance in the handheld scene for like God, like
Forever.
30, 40 years. Well, how long has it actually been?
Yeah.
80?
I mean,
it was like 89 or 88 Game Boy?
I don't know exactly.
Anyways, it's been a long time. It's been like 30 years. 40 years is definitely a total wrong. It's been like 30
You're
years.
rounding up.
I rounded up by a lot. Yeah, feeling old today. But anyways, it's just I think like that kind of thing would be awesome, and I know that they have the means to do it. I just don't ever see them doing anything like that. That's just like a pie in the sky desire of mine.
Yeah, I think
as a handheld lover.
One of the other things that I think hasn't quite been successfully taken care of yet is the analog stick for N64 controllers, because that's a really particular and precise analog stick compared to the ones. Yeah, but they have to be really accurate, because that's a completely different type of stick. Like that's actually an optical stick, right?
Yeah.
It's a completely different type of stick than what we're now using today. And it's like its range of like degrees of movement are completely different. So like, for example, I believe in one of the videos by My Life in Gaming, they talked about some alternatives for N64 controllers and sticks and even some of the replacements. And we're finding that there was like some of them were like kind of locking them almost into like 8 ways. Like it wasn't completely locking them into 8 ways, but it's almost like it had a tendency that it preferred to lock in if you were like within a range of that particular cardinal or intercardinal direction, or some of the ranges of like speed of movement, like when you tilt it very slightly and like gradually go out to the edge. Some of the like the stages of the range were different, or it would like the slow range like ramped up really fast, and then it was like full speed from like half tilt to full tilt. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like the range didn't match the range of the joystick linearly or whatever. So there's like all these different solutions, and from what I understand, there are some. From what I've researched, like the best solution are like replacement parts for the existing joystick.
Yep.
That's from what I was like looking up on Reddit. Yeah, I've seen that. Like for example, a lot of Smash 64 players in particular are like really prefer to go that route. I actually
have a really funny story about N64 controllers. So I had 2 growing up. I had the gray one that came with my N64. Got it when I was 10, I think. And then I had a black controller. And I loved the black controller for some reason. I just thought it was cooler looking than the gray one. Whatever. But now when I play with the gray one. You want to know why? I favored that black controller so much that the stick on it's a little bit loose. And the gray one is basically brand new.
Right.
So I've just had this like pristine N64 controller that I've carted around everywhere, and no one's ever used it. And I've started using it when I play games because it's just like, it feels like it's fresh out of the box. Like that stick is rigid.
The purple one that I bought is in fantastic condition as well.
That's awesome.
The one I got recently.
I think that stick is like, that's only the only consoles I can think of where the stick goes. Like I know pads go on like a lot of things, but in my personal experience, and I'm not super violent with any of my consoles, that was the only time that even just through regular use, like I wore out a joystick.
I have a pair of drifting Joy-Cons here, but that's
neither here nor there.
More of a common issue. Yeah.
Mine's starting to go.
That's a little different.
One of mine is starting to go a little bit. I almost wish
there was like, I think the problem is because of the click, like the stick click. But otherwise, I almost wonder if like a circle pad replacement
like
for
the PSP
Joy-Cons.
The little nub.
Yeah. Or I was thinking like 3DS.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mind the 3DSs, to be completely honest.
When I use the circle pad, I don't feel like I'm using something that's different from a joystick. I actually kind of don't notice it as a difference.
The like padding on mine came off, like the gray squishy bit. So on my 3DS, if you open it up, it's so funny. I bought it used originally, and it's Stylus is one of those like third-party ones because they didn't have the original one. And then on top of that, one of my buttons is cracked but still together, and the joystick has the gray has come off, and it's just like a black movable hard plastic thing, but it's still concave, so it still fits your thumb really good, and I kind of like it more.
Oh, okay. Well,
in a weirard way.
Lucky for you.
It's
it's actually kind of a side note on like buying a used console, and like I just got like the coolest little perk of buying my 3DS used, which is the charger they gave me is clearly third party, but it's cool because it's like a brick and like a USB plug. You know what I mean? And it still has like, it's got the proprietary connector for charging a 3DS on one side, but on the other end, it's a USB stick. And then there's just like a block, like what you get with like a phone.
Yeah.
So I can actually like not use the block, and I can like charge my 3DS off my PC or off like any computer or whatever.
Oh, that's actually super handy.
It's really cool. And that's just the charger they had in the box when they sold me a used 3DS. I was like, okay, great.
It's hilarious. That's absolutely
kind
awesome.
of a bonus. Yeah, it's been really awesome. I guess the last sort of like little facet of this that I wanted to sort of, this is more like a shout out, or like we should look to this community for example or guidance or whatever, is like, I think that rhythm games and like arcade and like fighting games have got like their controller replacement situation down. Because they've already been really into customs. Like there's always been people that want to like say play DDR at home without using one of those soft like fold up mats.
Yep.
So then there's like a whole like little industry around like building premium like metal like hard mats.
Yeah, definitely.
For DDR. There's like the whole fighting game community with customizing their arcade sticks. There's rhythm game controllers that are basically whatever the arcade cab has. Like and unfortunately, I think one of the things that makes it a lot easier for these communities to access this kind of stuff is that while the cabinets are out there and exist, replacement parts are available. And so if replacement parts are available, they can be sold both to arcades as businesses for repair and maintenance and to the consumer. Mm-hmm. Whereas like with controllers and stuff like that, there's no like maintenance industry. There's no like, we have like 100 consoles and we need like button replacements for like all of our controllers. Like that just sadly doesn't really exist, but I kind of wish that it did. And I sort of wish that there was like, you know, these are replacement micro switches for, well, a lot of the controllers aren't micro switches. What am I talking about? A lot of them are rubber dome. Like, I can't remember the electronics term for it, but you know, there's like the contacts on the PCB and rubber dome and all that. And so it's,
yeah.
I know there's like dome replacements for SNES controllers. I've seen it online. I just think that this kind of stuff should become more like widespread available, and that we should be working to preserve hardware aspects of the experience as well. Because, last time we talked about it, we were very focused on software.
I mean, the thing about Game Boys
but
is
I think the experience can be really transformative, like with the right hardware versus without.
I agree with you. I was going to say, I think the thing with Game Boys that I love about them is that as long as the board is intact, we have options and replacement parts for pretty much everything else. So Game Boys are, if you can just like continue to maintain like an original Game Boy board, you can basically keep that thing alive forever.
It wouldn't surprise me if the boards can be reproduced at some point.
Yeah. But like even so, like it's just like we have buttons, we have the pad replacements, we have even speaker replacements at this point. I think that if you have a Game Boy and you want to extend its life, one of the easiest mods you can do to it, I'm not even talking about the screen, although I do think that the IPS screen is a cool thing to do. You can buy for like $10 a recreation of the screen that you see, not the screen that's actually protecting the game, but the part on the outside on the original
screen
Game Boy.
That's part of the shell. Yeah.
The original Game Boy, it's plastic and it scratches quite easily. Everybody will have an old Game Boy that's all scratched up. They make glass replacements now that have the same font and say Game Boy Color or Game Boy Pocket. They're identical, except for the fact that they're glass. They're tempered glass, and the install is super simple.
Have a fresh, clean screen after all these years.
Exactly, and I
think a lot of people were really disappointed that they stuck to plastic screens even for the Switch.
Yeah, that was a weird thing to do, man.
I have my aforementioned used 3DS is a bit scuffed along the bottom edge. It's kind of gross because it looks like it's dirty, but like no amount of like cleaning it will remove it, because it's not actually dirt. It's some kind of it's not like a scratch, you know, because it doesn't have like a length.
Yep.
But it's like it's been impacted by sand. It's just like a couple little specks, really, that just do not go away because they are, as it turns out, not dirt, but some kind of damage that I can't identify. But I look at them occasionally and think about what if I had bought a new 3DS. And I mean new condition, not like it is a new 3DS.
Well, I was gonna say this conversation's actually reminding me that I really want to pick up a new 3DS, but the kind that is the smaller, like Japanese standard clamshell.
The XL.
Not the XL. I don't like the XL. I'm sorry. I like
I
the
want the new
tiny
2DS XL. Like for me, I'd like that to be maybe my future dated.
I do like that.
I like the 3D feature and I do use it occasionally, but
it's kind of whatever a lot of
I
time.
can do without. But that is also, by the way, yet another thing that is going to be difficult to preserve. You know what I mean? With 3DS.
It's not super essential in many games, though, to be honest.
No, it's not, I think, essential in any of them, but we're not really talking about what's essential. Like, for example, if you have a button that tells Phantom Hourglass that you've closed and opened the DS system, it's not essential that you be able to close and open your screen upon itself when you emulate it on a computer. Like, if you can get through the game, then it's not essential, right? But, I do know there are people out there that actually do like and use the 3D. For me, it depends on the game. I actually really like it in the 3DS Fire Emblem games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks good there.
I think it looks good in those ones, for example. But if it's like an actual 3D perspective, like, for example, the Zeldas, I'm not as big of a fan of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's one that's going to be, I think, challenging if we want people to be able to experience that 3D when 3DSs are becoming maybe scarce.
Which they kind of are currently, which has got me worried.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an awkward situation with that one. I'd really like to pick up another one. Like I said, maybe a 2DS XL or something like that. But anyway, I think that's really all I have on this topic. Yeah, unless you have any more thoughts.
No, I think that this conversation of game preservation and hardware will go on. I'm assuming we will revisit this in a new light in the future.
Even if we don't revisit it as a full topic, I think with as far as we've generally not been that newsy, I think that mentioning preservation-related topics, I'd like to make that maybe a recurring thing.
We can make it a recurring segment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
this week in preservation.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I'll have or if we will have or find something that's like new in preservation every single week. So I don't necessarily know if we can say it should be a recurring subject.
It could be a semi-recurring
segment, every time, but
we'll discuss
recurring when there's something to say about it. Yeah.
Yeah. It also gives me an excuse to make more bumpers.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which is always fun for me.
Right on.
Okay, so I have 3 topics here, and I think...
Yeah, you said that earlier, and I was like, 3?
I think I'm going to go with the middle one.
So you're going to hold on to the other ones for later?
I'm going to keep them in my back pocket. I wrote them down. We'll get to them.
Okay. When you first said that, I thought maybe you meant that like you had 3 like very short things or something like that.
Not really. These could all be full conversations. I want to talk about... I don't know what got me going on this, but I was thinking about it the other day, and it was... I was watching a video of a YouTuber, Matt McMuscles. He was playing a Dragon Ball Z game. Dragon Ball Z Sagas, and it was bad. Like,
what is it for? I'm not familiar.
It was for PS2, GameCube. It was like that gen.
Okay.
It's just like a bad 3D action cash in on the Dragon Ball Z IP.
We've had some good Dragon Ball Z games.
We have, but this is not about Dragon Ball Z.
But okay.
This is about disappointments, and I want to ask you. When were you hyped for a game and you got it or pre-ordered it, you got it for Christmas, whatever the situation was, you obtained this game and it was not what you had signed up for. And I find this happens when you're younger. Nowadays, I know that you yourself have traded things in and stuff like that. I'm talking when you're younger. What game? So I guess I'm looking specifically when you were younger, what game were you hyped for and you got and then were just disappointed in it? To the point where you tried so hard to make it work. Like it was like a bad relationship and you were just trying so hard to like...
Oh, I don't think I'm going to have one off the cuff without spending a little bit of time thinking.
Okay. Do you want to think while I give you mine? Because I did prepare one. I realize that this topic might be difficult, but I know that everybody's had a situation similar to this.
I think I'm some titles are coming to mind. I'm just thinking about maybe what the most significant one could be.
It doesn't have to be most significant. It could just be the one you think of, but I'll let you know mine. So I was on a trip to BC when I was younger, and it was around the time of my birthday. And while I was out there, I got a game for my Game Boy Advance. And it was The Legacy of Goku. So Dragon Ball Z thing sort of like is relevant, but not super. And it was top down. In my mind at the time, I was like, it's kind of like Pokemon or Zelda. It's a top down 2D adventure in Dragon Ball world, and you're Goku, and you just go through the saga up until the end of. I think it just ends at Frieza. I can't remember. It's not super important, to be completely honest. And I had like seen ads for it, and I was just like, Dragon Ball Z in my pocket. This is going to be rad. And I loaded it up, and it starts with like a really compressed video file version of like the North American Dragon Ball Z opening, and the music's playing, and the menu's kind of like bare bones, but I'm like, okay, this is okay. And I got to underline at this point, I had been playing like Golden Sun and like Super Mario Advance, like I would say like high caliber Game Boy Advance games. And like I just loved that IP, so I was just like, I'm going to take a dip into this IP. How bad? Like it won't be bad. Dragon Ball Z, I love it. And I just remember playing it and just being like, this is okay. Well, like no, I'll give it credit where credit's due. And it's just, man, it's barely playable. Like I beat it. Like I was on vacation, so like I didn't have anything else to do, right? Look at stuff, and then on car rides, play Dragon Ball Z. I think I also saw the Clone Wars that trip. I don't know. I have a lot of memories about this trip. But anyways, not important. Like the movie, not the show. And this game was just... So like it controls fine, but it controlled stiffly, right? It was weird. And the scenario was strange. And it was like really... So you could get like the solar flare, and you could use it to freeze every bad guy on the screen pretty much indefinitely. And then you could just like chip kill them with like tiny amounts of damage over and over and over again. And like the Kamehameha was weird and blocky, and it was like it was almost what I wanted, and it just didn't play right. Now I know that there's two other ones. There's Legacy Goku 2 and Boo's Fury, and apparently those ones like control and play a lot better. They're more like SNES RPGs. But the one thing that hit me, even as a kid, not someone really thinking about the game design, was I was playing like Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, and the Oracle games, right? And they have this really meaty kickback. When you hit an enemy, they get knocked back, or when they hit you, you get knocked back. You know what I mean? Like there's like it's very tactile, and you can feel it. And in this game, when you hit somebody, they just hit you back, and they don't move. There's no, like you just got punched by Goku, and you're like a normal woodland bandit at the starting of the game. Why aren't you going flying? Like they weren't getting knocked back. There was no knockback on any attacks. So basically you couldn't do like a no hit run of this game, because you would just, every attack was an attack of opportunity for the enemy, which made fights against enemies like Frieza at the end, basically you walking away from them as they like track you, using solar flare to freeze them, getting in a couple free hits, and then running far enough away that they could, every climactic battle in that game became like a really drawn out game of tag that was annoying to play. And like it just boggles my mind, because literally if there was just knockback when you punched things, that game could have been better. It would have been in the realm of me going, okay, but like it wasn't. And I suffered through the whole thing. I think I've beaten that game twice, maybe on that trip, because I was so bored, but like it was not good. And I tried so hard to like it, like so hard, not just because of my love as like a Dragon Ball fan, but also just because like on paper, it was a Dragon Ball Z RPG, top-down adventure through the Z Saga. I love that. It was not good. And it took me a long time to admit that that game was like probably not worth the money spent on it, brand new. Yeah, that's my traumatic game disappointment story. I'm sure I have others that I bought that I was just like not super into, but I've become a more savvy buyer. I like to think. So now when I take a chance on a game, usually it's used, or I know what I'm getting into before I buy it. That specifically as a kid was a huge letdown to me.
Okay.
That was quite the rant.
I don't know if I have that much to say about any of them. And so maybe for that reason, I'll mention each of the ones that come to mind.
Oh yeah, hit me with multiple, man. Definitely, 100%.
I think one of the first ones that comes to mind is maybe Metroid Prime Hunters.
Oh, yeah.
When I got the DS, I had already completed Metroid Prime on the GameCube, and I loved it. And if you remember, the DS came with a demo cart for Metroid Prime Hunters.
Yep, it was impressive.
And I figured because it was a demo that I thought it was a really good showing as a demo, right? Because I was like, the actual game could go in any direction from here, and be really good, right? Like based on the gameplay of that demo, like there's nothing to suggest that couldn't have reached the kind of heights of like the console Metroid Prime games, right?
Right. Oh, it was super impressive.
Based on the demo. Like the gameplay actually like plays nicely. You can, but then what happened is the actual game comes out and that campaign was actually kind of just terrible.
Wasn't it just like a collection of like death matches basically? Like that was it?
No, it had like a campaign and you would like fly around between maps and stuff like that. But realistically, the problem was there was just a couple of different variants on bosses and they would constantly reuse them. Like I think I remember one that was like a tower that had like segments that were stacked vertically and there was like weak points and it would spin around the segments and there was like these lasers that would kind of shoot out at you and you had to like shoot the weak points in each of the segments of the tower and then they would just like bring it back with like more segments or more lasers. Or I feel like there was also one that might have looked like an eye on a wall or something like that if I remember correctly. And then the other encounters they had that they sort of used as bosses were basically you would be running around in like a planet or whatever and you'd come into like an open room and then they would just pit you against one of the other hunters.
Right.
Which was basically not that much different from playing multiplayer against an AI. Well, and then the multiplayer maps were like integrated into the single player campaign. And I'm saying that in a reverse way because it felt more like they used the multiplayer maps that they had designed as like areas to like have an encounter with a hunter or something in the actual game, as opposed to, because you see this in first person shooter sometimes where like cutouts of the single player campaign's level become multiplayer arenas.
Yeah, definitely.
But it felt like it was designed the other way around. Like it felt like a large amount of the game was put together and tested in multiplayer.
And then slapped a campaign on.
And then they had to kind of build a campaign.
Right.
Yeah, so I was hoping for depth. I was hoping for a good story. I was hoping for a lot of things to scan and like unique boss encounters and stuff like that. And I got a really dull and empty game with tons of just like repeated bosses and stuff like that. But the funny situation here though is I actually did play a lot of that game and really liked it. But what I did was I played a lot of the multiplayer mode against bots or played a lot of it online with the DS Wi-Fi. Or even download play with other DS owning kids at school. So I actually basically, I think, spent like 90% of the time that I played on that game in multiplayer, even though what I was impressed with like Metroid Prime on the GameCube was, I mean, it's only a single player game, right? That's an experience like that is what I wanted and was expecting when I bought it. Another one also on the DS is Yoshi Touch and Go.
Oh yeah, okay.
Have you played that one?
No, but Yoshi, like
linear.
Kirby, has a whole bunch of games that I think people bought and were like, "This is going to be great," and they're like, "I don't know."
Yeah, I kind of think this is where it started.
This was the first offender.
Yeah, you like don't control Yoshi. He like walks to the right at a fixed speed, and you can draw on the screen to like draw clouds that he can like walk up on to like get him to other paths through the level, or like I think there's certain things you can do that'll make him spin. I think if you can like tap him to make him jump, or like double tap to flutter jump, or you can like launch an egg. Like you can do a bunch of things, but you have no actual movement control over Yoshi.
Seems weird.
It's like a giant auto scroller essentially, and then one of the big problems on top of that is there wasn't really like a level system or like checkpointing or saving, so it kind of was very like kind of arcadey in that way. Like it's kind of like playing an arcadey shmup, or like some of the games that we played during Snester days, where it's like I want to see a later level, and it's just like I go and I die and I go and I die and I go and I die. I'm out of lives and now I'm back to the beginning, and that's just like your only fail state. Right? Like there was literally no forms of saving other than score, or like how far you went as like a measure. I can't remember if it's like kilometers or like yards or fake Yoshi units or what, but steps. Maybe it was steps.
Yoshi units.
Yeah, Yoshi units. Yeah. So that game really disappointed me because I was expecting like a platformer.
Yeah, definitely.
Like back when I was a kid, right around the beginnings of the DS era, I got burned a couple times, I think, by these games, and this is when I became more of a review reader.
Okay.
But you know what's actually the funny thing? I still let myself get dinged a couple more times, even after that, or even because of reviews. So like one of the ones I remember. So I've never played Tales of Symphonia besides like getting to the first dungeon and like saving
I really like that game
on the modern HD remake. But after having played Vesperia with one of my childhood friends, and having a really great time, I just like really wanted to play a Tales game, and like all I had was a Wii, and at that point I don't think I could even find like Symphonia 1 anymore.
Did you buy the sequel?
So I did. I bought the sequel.
Oh no!
And my God, I must have played like 3 or 4 hours and put that one down.
Yep. That's what I've heard.
Not a good game. Literally, just not a kind of unbearable characters like right from the get go. I think there's only 2 characters, and then you like get a monster to participate in battle in like the 3rd slot. I don't even think you get 4 slots, or maybe 2. I don't
That's
know.
a classic JRPG sequel thing to do. Final Fantasy X-2 does that too. Not 10-2, sorry, 13-2.
13-2. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where the whatever. I don't know where that stuff comes from, but
Dragon Quest V probably.
And then perhaps my last one, perhaps my last sort of like maybe poor experience was also on the DS. The DS and the Wii era just didn't treat. I think there's like
shovelware, man.
I want to say shovelware, but I've already mentioned 2 first-party games.
But I think it was shovelware, and then like this idea that they had to like innovate, but also like appeal to the masses. So they attached like prominent IPs to a lot of things that you wouldn't expect, and there were some duds in there.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit different.
Okay.
Quite a different experience, which is there was a review I read in Nintendo Power, and especially because Nintendo Power was like sort of affiliated, right? They tend to, because like at that point, all kinds of different types of games could appear on a system, and but like despite the content, Nintendo Power would always treat it like it's like a PG rated game. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they won't, like if there's something in the game that's like kind of like, I don't know, edgy or like, you know what I mean? They won't mention it, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of weird. This is kind of a dumb one because like it's really obvious, I suppose, when you look at the box cover art. So anyway, but they talked so much about how like weird and zany the game is, and how like kind of like trippy it is. So the game is Feel the Magic. Like Feel the Magic XYXX, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so they like Nintendo Power reviewed this game as like a mini game collection that's like really wacky and like weird and funny, and like they focused a lot on the humor and stuff like that, and they basically like didn't mention like the sexuality of it like at all, which is like a huge part of what the story of the game involves, right? And and so I guess the thing about it is like it actually is a fun game. And some of the mini games are like, because that is essentially how it plays as like a mini game collection. Some of them are actually like really fun to play and like are really unique and all that. But like it's so mired in like this whole like romantic relationship with like the girl in the story or whatever, and like the shots of her that appear in like the cutscenes and stuff like that, that like I didn't know that I was getting myself into that. And it's funny because you'd think as like a teen boy, I would be like, oh, that's, you know, but I actually just felt so uncomfortable that I like owned this game.
Dude, it's okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. In Japan, the title is I Would Die For You. And it was, in Europe and Australia, it was released as Project Rub.
Yeah, I know. I found out, like, I mean, the sequel came out and it was the Rub Rabbits, right?
Yeah. It was definitely more sexual than people thought it was going to be.
I think the problem, for me,
Games.
I think the fault lies almost entirely on Nintendo Power. Like, I mean, the cover, I kind of looked at the cover and I was kind of like, what? Why is there like a girl in a bikini on the cover or whatever? But I mean, I just kind of took Nintendo Power's word for it.
It's so weird. You got burned by a really strange review there.
So I kind of got burned because I didn't really get it's complicated because I didn't really get burned because like if I actually sit down and like look at the game and say like it is all of the things they said it was, and I don't think that it's like a bad quality game. Like it was a functional game that actually had fun gameplay in its gameplay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I ended up just like kind of like almost like embarrassed by my ownership of the game. You know what I mean? That was sort of like the experience.
Do you still have it, or did you sell it?
No, I sold it with my whole DS collection, but I kept it for like quite a long time because like when I was a kid, I didn't tend to sell. I think it was because we didn't get like great offers from like EB and stuff like that, and like I was like kind of too young to like use something like we didn't have. My hometown doesn't actually like use Kijiji, but anyway, whatever. We didn't have like classified ads. We had it. I think it might have been that my mom wouldn't want me to do that on my own, so she would have to be like the one to do it. And then like if I was only going to sell like one game that way, it's like not worth it. So she was like, if you're going to do that, like figure out like everything and do it like all at once or something. And
yeah,
I was like, like EB,
sell it as a lot.
EB Games will offer me like $5 for it, and that's like nothing. So I don't remember exactly when I got rid of it. I'm thinking I didn't have it anymore when I sold the remainder of my DS collection in like college.
Okay.
So I don't know. I might have traded it in for something. But I feel like I had it for a while. Like I think I might have had it for like even up to a year. But there was a point where it was like, like my friend who had a DS would be like, come over, bring your DS games. I just like wouldn't bring that.
Did you beat it? This is the real question that I want to know. Did you finish this game?
No, I didn't finish it. I think I got stuck, like genuinely got stuck. But I took like a good run at it, and I got pretty far into it from what I maybe remember.
You gave it the old college try.
Yeah, I did in high school. Okay,
here's a quick follow-up, tangentially related. Just curious. We don't have to get super into it. I think we should move on to the backlog soon.
I also don't want to I also just want to put it out there. Like I'm not like a prude or anything like that. Like the game, like it does what it does, and like they have the artistic merit to like make a game that explores like a story about like sexuality or whatever. Like that's cool and everything. It's just it's not what I expected I was getting into, even though I should have definitely taken the cover art at its word, so to speak. It's really I think on Nintendo Power trying to keep a clean image that like they were unwilling to even like talk about that aspect of the game in their review.
Yeah, like even as
I
a
think
disclaimer.
that was maybe the issue. Yeah, I thought it would be extremely light on that stuff and that it wouldn't be like
in the forefront.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah.
I was gonna say, what was the time you were pleasantly surprised by a game you thought it would be bad?
That's hard.
That was a really weird sentence. Pleasantly surprised by a game you thought would be bad.
You want the inverse, right?
Yeah. We don't have to get super into it, but just out of curiosity, if you have a quick quip.
So that's really challenging because I don't tend to. That's challenging. That's really hard, man.
Okay, I got one for this one too.
I think I got one.
Oh, hit me.
Actually, I kind of have an entertaining choice.
Sure.
And about this because you witnessed it, and that's probably Pilot Wings on SNES days.
Oh yeah, that game was kind of cool.
I actually ended up really liking Super Nintendo Pilot Wings, and definitely didn't think I would.
Yeah.
Hey. So that could be my choice here.
Mine is my sister got it as a gift for her birthday. She's a bit younger than me, so I was just like, oh, this is going to be a baby game, right? Man, was I wrong. I actually bought my own copy of it a few years ago for $10. I think it's one of the most underrated Game Boy Color games. If you want a chill adventure it's not hard. It's not in any way hard or difficult. I guess those are the same things. But I mean, like, it's not like a tricky game to figure out, and it's not mechanically super difficult, but the graphics are pretty well done, I think. The vibe is fun, and it is like a fun kind of adventure. So what you do in this game is you use words. You collect words and you put it in this dictionary, and then these words you talk to people, and they're kind of like passcodes or like let you do certain actions to get further in the game. And this game is Hamtaro Ham Hams Unite.
Okay.
It's a licensed game about that hamster show, hamster anime Hamtaro. The goal is all the friends in the Ham clubhouse have scattered, and you have to just reunite them for a party. It's like the dumbest premise. But you have this world map, and you have all these little locations to go to. When you go to a location, you walk around like a Game Boy RPG. Nice big sprites. Everything's kind of chunky. It's got this good look to it. And they all talk using this slang called ham chat. So a character will just be like, I have a cold and I don't know what to do. And then you have to select from your dictionary, like what word will help them. And sometimes you have to like use the one for like sniff in the air to like help them out. Or like sometimes you have to like use the word for tackle because then he'll act out a tackle to like, and you can make someone dizzy. It's just like, it seems like a dumb kids game, but what it reminds me of is like a point and click adventure that you play like a thing, because basically what you're doing is if you get rid of the idea of like the words being the premise here, what you're doing is you're going around collecting items and then using them in specific locations from a menu, just like those old point and click adventures, and you're using them in new scenarios to get things. And the thing is that you collect the words, they're not just like lying around. Like you'll have to like help a character out with one word, and then there'll be like this like mini scenario, and at the end of the scenario they'll teach you a new word, and then you go, hey, this word probably is what I need to say to this person over here. And then you go back to the world map and you go to that area, and then, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of a game. And it's not long or anything. There's not any real head scratchers, but it's like an adventure game minus the like pixel hunting and like really obtuse solutions, because it's like a kid's game, but it's also like really well done. And I actually looked up reviews for this game recently just to see how people rate it. And it's like, even at the time of its release, the critical reception was basically, this game is pretty simple. It's a kid's game, but what's here is really well done. And also it's kind of just fun to play for like the 6 hours that it lasts or whatever. I've always liked this game. I think that game's really neat for a lot of reasons. It's an RPG without any fights. It's an adventure game without any pointing and clicking. And it's somehow still interesting to me today. I've never played a game like it before or since. And it's just this weird little Game Boy Color game. I don't have any other explanation. I love this little Hamtaro game, and it's totally dumb.
That's great. I think that's the kind of game that like maybe a lot of people who are like kind of core, like think of themselves as like a, so to speak, gamer, like they don't even like look twice at. And like on the rare occasion, you can sometimes find a hidden gem in like some weird licensed game that you were never even willing to look twice at otherwise, right?
It I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it's a polished little experience, and it is entertaining. It has all the charm and love of like those retro throwback, kind of like mini adventure combat optional RPGs we see on like Steam and everything by indie developers nowadays. It's just that this game was actually released on the Game Boy Color. The only thing is that the story is obviously trash. It's like you're collecting all the hamsters to have a party. Like, it's dumb.
Whatever.
You're not going to get a deep experience.
It's a Hamtaro game. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah, you're not going to get deep experience like in a narrative sense from this game. But what this game does, I think, is really strong, and I was not expecting it. It had no reason being as good as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Should we move on to the backlog?
I think it could be time.
Let's do it then.
You know what it is, it's the backlog.
All right, we're here in backlog land. Every week, I ask Ben if he did it first last week or if I did, and it's always
I think it's
wrong.
Your turn to go. I think it's my turn to go first.
I was going to say, I listened back earlier. I know it's
okay.
my turn.
Oh, you already checked.
Oh, yeah, I did.
All right, go for it then.
This is related to my creation of my PSP Go as a PlayStation 1 RPG arc, if you will. And it is Xenogears, a game I have started a couple of times, gotten kind of far into. Like, I'm talking like 12, 15 hours kind of range.
Xenogears.
Never finished it. It's totally everything I like. It's anime as heck. It's got robots. It's a PlayStation 1 RPG published by Squaresoft. It's by Monolith Soft, right? They went on to make Xenoblade Chronicles, Xenosaga, all those other things. I should like this game a lot. I don't not like it. I just never really got around to finishing it. I think the mech combat's cool. I think the story's interesting. It's just one of those
disc copy, or is it like on your PSP Go or something?
No, yeah, I have it digitally. I would really like a disc copy of it. Hilariously, it's not usually super expensive, but I don't think there's a greatest hits version of it. So when you do find it, it's always kind of expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to play that one too, actually. I've heard it's really, really good.
Yeah. It's got anime robots and apparently some big religious overtones. I don't really have a big rant on this.
I've heard it has a pretty wild story, like a pretty emotional depth kind of story.
It's also like inverse Final Fantasy VII in a way because
I've heard this sort of
it's like it has 2D
this concept as well.
2D sprites on 3D backgrounds that rotate, kind of like Grandia. To be completely honest, I think if you had to have like a contemporary that it's a lot like Grandia, if you're familiar with that. But yeah, it's
probably less familiar with that.
Well, yeah. But like evidently Final Fantasy went the pre-rendered background route because they wanted those really, over the top fancy looking set pieces. And this game, I'm not saying it doesn't have fancy set pieces. It just went for like a different vibe. Anyways, yeah, I just really want to finish it. I don't have a whole deep thing to say here. I don't have a really good reason for not finishing it. I just haven't. But it's been long enough. That's one of those things where, like, if I played it, I'm gonna start it again from scratch because it's been too long that I don't really recall what I was doing in the story. And getting reacquainted with it is probably not a bad idea.
Cool. Yeah, it's on my list too. So I really want to play that one.
What do you got? I'm sorry that was like a minute long.
No. I mean, I don't. I maybe want to mention too myself because I have like hardly anything to say to this one except I just haven't got around to it yet. If you remember, what was it? Was it a PS4 showcase? There was a showcase recently. Or I should say PS4. Like Sony. I don't remember what it was announced in. It certainly wasn't a direct, but it could have been a state of play, or it could have been something even before that. Maybe if it was even like the Xbox presentation. One of them, there was a game that was shown that kind of had like a Panzer Dragoon sort of aspect to it, but it was like a modern, like modern HD, like brand new game. But it had like, flying around on dragons and like shooting fireballs at each other, kind of like aspect to it. And that game was called Century Age of Ashes, and it's still not out yet, but and I don't know how hard this is. I don't know if like everyone in the world got into this or not, but I went and I signed up for like beta or playtest or whatever, and I got the notification on Steam, and so I got offered the Century Age of Ashes playtest.
Oh really? That's awesome.
Yeah, so I have access to the playtest, and I could play it. And that like initial spark of interest when I saw that trailer, and I was like, oh, I would love to play that. I'd give that a try. Like, hasn't stayed ignited. Like, I'm not saying I'm like not interested in the game or anything. I'm still interested in it. It just hasn't stayed. Like, if they said, like download demo today, I would have downloaded the demo that day. You know what I mean? But now that it's been a couple of weeks or months, I don't even know when we saw the trailer, so I don't know how long. Since I saw that trailer, I'm like kind of, it's not fresh now,
Yeah.
in my mind.
The moment has passed.
Well, yeah, when I sit there and I look at Steam and I go Century Age of Ashes playtest or
Final Fantasy 14.
I just pick FF14.
I'm having a hard time not picking FF14 lately myself, to be honest.
It's tough. It's really tough. So yeah, other than just I haven't got around to it, I don't have much else to say about that one. I mean, it looks really cool. I don't even know who the developer of this game is. I mean, I guess I could just click store page here. Let's see.
See, when you were explaining it, except for the fact that you said it was like a PS4 game, I thought you were going to talk about what was that game that came out on the PS3 that used 6-axis? It was like Lair. or something. That
I have
dragon
no
game.
idea what that even is.
Oh man, it was like one of those like
the developer and
strange
publisher
games.
both. It shows Playwing Limited, and they have no other games. So this is also a pretty
It's a fresh
unknown.
game.
Oh, the planned release date is April 2021. So this game's like coming out. I'm sure everyone's in this playtest then. But I'm sure this will also be a paid game, so I should really probably play the playtest and see if I like the game.
Maybe they're waiting for your feedback. They're just like, we want to send it. We want to send it to print, but we just can't until Ben gets back to us. He'll get back to us one of these days.
It looks really cool. I should really give this one a try. Anyway, and then I kind of said that like I could think of another one, so I'll throw it out there too. I also just kind of want to see like how real the criticisms for Metroid Other M are. I have a disc copy right over there on the shelf. I could just pop it in any day and play it. Yeah, our mutual friend Andrew gave it to me.
Oh, okay.
With a small, modest like Wii collection when he sold me his Wii.
Did he give you Final Fantasy Chronicles: The Crystal Bearers? Because that's another game that I'm curious if it's actually bad or if it's kind of okay.
He did. I think he didn't give that to me, or if I think he didn't. The one he gave me that I'm always kind of like, holy moly, I can't believe he gave me that. When I kind of go online and look at the prices, he gave me Dragon Quest IV.
Oh, for
on
DS?
DS, yeah.
I have that too. Yeah. Not Hand of the Heavy Bread. It's Chapters of the Chosen, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that game actually kind of rules, man. I've been trying to get I'm trying to get the other two, the 5 and 6, and they're like
I fired up
$300
5 on the SNES. It's like the Aeon Genesis translation.
Yes.
And that first song on the boat in that game like kills. That song is so good for some reason. Like literally it's like the first song in the game, like when you're just on the boat at the beginning.
Man, so much Dragon Quest music is so good, and that guy just bums me
excellent.
out.
What was the original platform for the original version of 4?
I'm
thinking there might not, like I would have assumed SNES.
No, I don't think it was. I think it was the NES.
You think it's NES?
I'm gonna find out right now. Let's see here.
Because I know that like 1 and 2 and 3 are on SNES, but I think 1 and 2 are a remake. I don't know what the situation with 3 is. So then like where's 4?
It was 4 was. It was on the NES.
Okay, that explains it.
It was also released in North America on the NES too, eh?
Out of the DS games, I'm really happy that 4 is the one I have, because then with the various fan translations and stuff on SNES, like I could play 1 through 6 because 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 are on the SNES, all with fan translations, and then I have 4 on the DS right over there on the shelf. So, you know, I'm covered. I got
4's really
and then
good.
7 and 8 for 3DS. 9 would be the only one that I wouldn't actually have access to easily.
I have 9, which is also really weirdly expensive right now.
And then, of course, localized 10, please. I'd check it out. I heard that I think it might have been Try in a My Life in Gaming video said that Dragon Quest 10 is actually pretty easy to play along with using like more of like a translation guide. Like it's not like a translation patch or anything like that. It's more like you can follow along an English guide that'll like contextualize what you're doing and tell you what selections to pick and stuff like that.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Tell you what your menu says. Yeah, it's like more like using I guess it'd kind of be like playing with like a translation dictionary, except not as extreme as that.
Or like when I was a kid and I'd play looping it back to Dragon Ball Z license games. Man, I'm all about the anime license games this week. I used to play those SNES Dragon Ball Z fighting games on the emulators, and it's like I had no idea what any of the selections were, so I just used to pick stuff randomly until I found.
It's like that's how I felt when I tried out Bashoujo Senshi Sailor Moon S blah blah blah, a bunch of subtitles. There's too many Japanese words that I don't know how to pronounce correctly, but basically the Sailor Moon fighting game on SNES, when I had to figure out how to get into like various modes, I was like I don't understand this. I had a friend over after like a tournament, FGC tournament that we like met up for in 2019 or whatever, and he played that game a little bit on the side, so he was encouraging me to fire it up. I'm sorry?
the before times.
Yeah, he was encouraging me to fire it up and give it a try, and I was like, I cannot figure out what modes are what.
Huh.
Yeah. Could have used a guide on that one. I mean, I'm sure I could have found one if I went searching. But other than like little things like that, it's actually crazy how many, especially in this era, like SNES era, how many Japanese games are like otherwise like entirely playable.
Totally.
Even though they're untranslated.
I mean, that's why I modded my SNES to play them.
For region free, yeah.
But I was going to say, looping back to Other M as your second game.
Yeah.
I've heard that, this is just a final bit, I've heard that the thing people have a problem with in that game is not necessarily the gameplay, but the characterization of Samus and the way the narrative is told. I haven't heard a lot of people actually like tear into the game itself as being bad. It's definitely a departure from Metroid, but it's not necessarily a bad game. It's developed by, is it Team Ninja or Ninja Team? Like the people, like the people who made, my brain's totally blanking right now. I gotta look it up. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm pretty sure it's Team Ninja. Team Ninja. And they made... why can't I...
I was confused. Ninja Theory and Team Ninja.
Ninja Gaiden. That's what they make. Oh my god.
Speaking of Ninja
it's not
Gaiden,
Ninja Blade. That's not the right game.
Speaking of Ninja Gaiden, apparently they're trying to do a remake collection, and they found that they don't have source code for like Ninja Gaiden Black and like Ninja Gaiden 2 and stuff like that.
They're just like remaking it from scratch.
What I guess there's some like already like some like different version they can work off of or something like that. I really only skimmed the article, but it was an article that IGN posted I think yesterday or the day before, and apparently some of the Ninja Gaiden games have missing source assets and code. So
they also made Neo
as far as source, unfortunately, has been left behind yet again.
Well, that's fun.
I think that on the source end of things, I really wish that developers were getting on board with preservation efforts, because that would make a dramatic difference, I think. But, they never will, right? So.
Yep. And we can get into that more in another topic. Time. I just realized that we started really rambling.
We keep opening up so many tangents during this particular backlog session.
That's okay. Well, that's the fun thing about the backlog, though, is it spurs on these like memories of other games and conversations that go on.
Absolutely.
But we'll put a pin in it for now and move on to the farewells.
To the goodbyes.
To the goodbyes. Thanks for listening, everybody. As you know, you can find us at TPCC_podcast on Twitter. Let us know what you think about what's your backlog? What are you avoiding playing for some reason? Do you have strong feelings about Xenogears? Do you really love the sequel to Tales of Symphonia? Let us know. Tell us your thoughts on game preservation. This seems to be an ongoing topic that we bring up a lot, so I'm assuming it'll come up even more.
It kind of touches like everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in a way it does. But on that note,
also our YouTube, don't forget, we uploaded SNESerday's episodes 3 and 4. I did 3, I think, yesterday and 4 today. So there are 2 more episodes of SNESerday's on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
This podcast cannot continue on YouTube. And then, we mentioned the Twitter. We're also streaming the episodes for that. What was the Twitch channel again? Is it just This Podcast Cannot Continue? I think it is.
I believe so. We'll tweet it out.
Yeah, if we go live for future SNESerday's episodes, I say when we go live for future SNESerday episodes, we will be tweeting our Twitch links. So
come join us for a rambling good time while we investigate weird games that came out that we didn't know existed. But for now, this podcast cannot continue.